Math Time with Ms. Hartzell, Module 7, Lesson 18. I can measure an object twice using different length units and compare. I can relate measurement to unit size.
Hey there, friends. So now that we are getting really good at understanding the different customary units of length, we're going to reach back into our brains and we're going to pull out the information that we know about the metric units of length. And we're going to use both of these different units to help us understand comparisons and how the metric unit is different than the customary unit of length. And we are going to just focus on the smallest units that we've learned about so far. So the smallest metric unit of length that we learned about were centimeters. Remember, centimeters take up about the amount of space of a grain of rice. This little grain is so small you can barely even see it. And we are going to compare centimeters to inches. Remember, I've been using this square tile to help us understand inches because the length of these sides equal 1 inch exactly. So if I were to measure an object using centimeters, and then I measured the object again using inches, would those measurements be the same? That's going to be our work for today. So get those brains ready with our pause and think.
Pause and think. What unit of length would be the best unit to measure this pencil? Pause and think about the answer to this question, and when you're finished thinking, press play.
Okay, so today for our lesson, just like our target says, we are going to be measuring objects twice using different length units, and then we are going to compare. So if I look at this standard ruler that has both inches and centimeters available for measuring, these are the two major units that we are going to be working with today. So just starting and looking at this ruler, when I look at the centimeter side compared to the inch side, I notice some differences right away. And maybe you've noticed this too. When I take a look at inches, these big numbers that are being labeled for each inch, they are very spread apart. But the distance between each inch is the same, okay? So from 0 to my first inch, it's the same distance from this 1 inch to the second inch. And that is really important when you are measuring. The distance between one unit to the next unit has to be equal, okay? Because then we look at the other side and we notice that the centimeters, their numbers are closer together. So centimeters and inches are not the same unit of length, because when I look at the equal distances between each centimeter, that space is much smaller. But you'll notice, just like inches, it's consistent. Every time I'm looking at the next centimeter from 0 to 1, that is the same space that takes up from 1 centimeter to the second centimeter, okay? So even though inches and centimeters are different units, when I'm using centimeters, they are consistent. That means that every time I am measuring using centimeters, it's an equal distance of 1 centimeter to the next centimeter to the next centimeter, and so on. And that is similar to inches, although inches take up more space. They are equal in distance when you are looking at inches. Every inch takes up the same amount of space, okay? So this information is going to be really important for today to notice how these measurements are consistent. When I am using inches, it's the same space over and over again. If I'm measuring with centimeters, it's the same amount of space over and over again for centimeters. But centimeters and inches are not equal, and I'm going to prove that today. So let's start by measuring a pencil, okay? So just like any good mathematician, when they are measuring, I'm going to take my tool and I'm going to either move my object or move my tool so that the very end point of my pencil lines up with the 0 on my tool. And I'm going to get close to make sure that it is as close to the end point as possible. So now I'm going to hold my ruler down. Notice how I'm holding it straight in line with my object. Okay, it's not tilted, it's not vertical, because I'm trying to measure the length of this pencil. So when I hold it up, looking close, making sure it is lined up with that endpoint, now I'm going to count my centimeters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I'm going to say this is 16 because the eraser is closer to the 16th centimeter and it's farther from the 17th centimeter. So this pencil is about 16 centimeters in length. I'm going to write down that measurement so I don't forget. And we can use the abbreviation of cm to represent the word centimeter. So now I'm going to flip my tool and I'm going to remeasure this pencil using inches. So some of the same strategies as measuring with centimeters, I measure when I'm using inches. I line up the tool with 0 at the end point of the object. I try to hold my tool very straight so that it is in line with my object. And now I can start counting my inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this object is showing to be almost in the center of 6 and 7, but it is a little closer to 6. So again, trying to get really close. I'm going to say that this is closer to 6 inches because it has not yet gone past the halfway mark. So it is about 6 inches. It's not perfect. You know, life's not always perfect. It's fine. But when we are measuring, you can use that strategy. Okay, if the object is closer to the inch that you just counted, then use that inch. If the object is halfway or almost to the next inch, then you can say that object is that next inch, okay? So now that I've measured using 2 different units of length, we can really visually see how different centimeters are than inches, okay? But remember, when I was measuring in inches, every single inch was equal in size. When I measured with centimeters, every single centimeter is equal in size. That is very important. What do you notice about these 2 measurements of the pencil? 16 centimeters, 6 inches. You notice that there are more centimeters than inches. Why? Why are there 16 centimeters and 16 is a greater number than 6? Why are there more centimeters than inches? Well, there are more centimeters than inches because centimeters are a very small unit of length. Remember, we have used a grain of rice to understand a centimeter. Grains of rice are really, really small. So in order to measure an object like a pencil, I need a lot of those small units to measure the entire length of the pencil. But inches, although they are a smaller unit than feet and yards, they're not as small as a centimeter. Here's the grain of rice on top of an inch tile. This inch takes up more space than the centimeter. So when I measured the pencil using inches, I didn't need as many inches because inches do take up more space than centimeters do. And this, you will notice, happens with any type of object that you might measure. When you're measuring with centimeters, because they are such a small unit of length, you will need a lot of them to cover the entire length of whatever object you are measuring. If you are measuring using inches, you will need less inches than centimeters because inches do take up more space than a centimeter. Let's see if this is true for a different object. So this was our data about the pencil. So now I'm going to measure this finger trap. Okay, this is like a very classic little fun thing that you might use. I use it to handle stress and anxiety sometimes. So I'm going to place this finger trap on my board, and I'm going to start by measuring using centimeters. Moving my tool as close to the object as I possibly can, and trying to find where the end point of my object. Sometimes I like to put my finger near 0 so that I can really accurately measure. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going to start counting my centimeters. So remember that we always start with 0, and 0 means that I have not measured yet. Okay, I have not started to figure out how many centimeters there are. So now as I move my finger away from 0, I'm going to start counting each centimeter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this is actually past the halfway mark between 12 and 13. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this finger trap is about 13 centimeters. Now, using your critical thinking and some of this knowledge that you just gained about the differences between centimeters and inches, when I measure this finger trap in inches, will the amount of inches that I need be more or less than 13? Think about that for a moment while I flip my tool, and we'll see if you're right. So, lining up to 0, I'm going to use my finger to try to help me get to 0 as close as possible. Okay, feeling like that's looking pretty good. So again, 0 means that I have not started to measure. The moment my finger leaves 0, then I am beginning to measure using inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Were you right? Did you know that the inches, you would need less inches to measure this finger trap? If you were wrong, don't worry about it. This is a new concept for some of you, and that is okay. Mistakes make us stronger. the reason we need less inches, it's because inches take up more space. And when I keep using that same unit over and over and over again, I'm able to take up more space of this finger trap. Unlike measuring with centimeters, when I'm measuring with centimeters, because that unit of length is so small, much smaller than an inch, then I would need to move that piece of grain many times across this object in order to measure it using centimeters. I would have to move it about 13 times so that I can measure this entire object. Okay, so because centimeters are a smaller unit, they take up less space, you need more of them. And because inches, although it is not a very large unit of length, like miles or yards, compared to centimeters, inches take up more space. So we don't need as many, we need less inches to measure objects than centimeters because inches take up more space, okay? So today in your daily practice, you're going to be doing a lot of critical thinking and comparing between two objects. Now, because we are in our remote learning setting, I'm not expecting you to go and measure objects yourself, okay? So if you want practice with that, I highly suggest getting on IXL so that you can practice measuring using an online virtual tool. In your daily practice and exit ticket, you will get already measured objects, okay? So you'll see something like, I measured this pencil using centimeters and inches. Why do I have more centimeters listed than inches? So you will need to answer that question and give me your thoughts. Why do you need more centimeters than inches? And if you need help, look back in this video. I'll try to put a timestamp on when we started talking about this information in detail, okay? But it's because centimeters are a smaller unit of length. That's why you need more of them, okay? So if I'm looking at these two numbers, I can't ignore my label, okay? Because then I'm gonna think that centimeters are bigger than inches, and that's not true, friends, not true. Centimeters are smaller, that's why we need more of them, because centimeters take up less space than an inch. We need less inches to measure objects because inches take up more space than a centimeter, okay? And I hope that you can see that in the proof today when I measured that pencil and I measured the finger trap, okay? So do your best to understand this and have a great day, as always.